what I haven't gotten to do in a while? Just rag on a bad movie. This is a commissioned review. The commissioner didn't say whether or not they liked this movie or they expected me to like it. I hope that was not the case, because this was trash. Dark Signal. Now, I have a tendency when I get commissioned stuff that I don't especially like to still try and be fair to it, especially because in a lot of cases I know the people who commissioned me were hoping I would like it. Again, I don't know if that's the case with this, but this was real bad. This wasn't like, oh, well, I could see what they were going for, but it's not normally my thing, you know. I'm sure it's good for people who like the genre. Like, no, I wouldn't recommend this even for people who like whatever 4 subgenres of horror it's trying to be at the same goddamn time. Okay, how do we explain this thing? First of all, I don't care if I spoil this for you. It's a bad movie. I'd be doing you a favor. But all right. So this is set in Wales, and it has basically 2, sort of 3, sort of 4, actually, overlapping stories. The 2 that matter is that there is a woman who's a mother of a son with some disabilities who is being roped in to help her boyfriend like shake down somebody for money or rob a house, or exactly what his plan is seems kind of nebulous, but she's helping him because she needs money and he says this will help her get it. So she's off with him doing that while her son is being watched. And at the same time, there is this radio station, this local radio station doing an analog broadcast, and it's final broadcast night and the final show for this particular DJ before they switch over to digital and start carrying the bigger stuff from the bigger stations. And so she is morose. She's broadcasting, so it's her tech guy, and for some reason, despite her not believing in this thing, she has agreed to bring on a psychic who talks to the dead. And that's where the titular Dark Signal comes from, because in the background of all this at the same time, there is a serial killer who has been terrorizing the area called the Wedlock Killer, because he cuts off the ring finger of his female victims. So that's oh boy. That's what's going on. I kind of implied when I said the 4 different subgenres of horror this thing's trying to be, like, this thing is all over the map. It starts with a voiceover that we won't have an explanation for until the very end that brings up the idea of the supernatural. So I'm like, cool, supernatural story. Awesome. But then we go to this house in the woods and we get our first kill, basically. And this is after introducing the idea that there's a serial killer around. So I'm like, or is this a slasher? Well, that first victim we see is the ghost supposedly coming through on the radio. So I'm like, okay, so it's a supernatural justice revenge story. But then the woman who's like helping to rob this place, she gets effectively okay. So she goes into the house to try and find what happened to her boyfriend because he's taking a while. The old guy who lives there finds this woman over the body of the woman we saw killed at the beginning because that woman is his daughter. So he starts torturing the woman who got dragged into all of this. Kate is her name. He starts torturing Kate until the actual Wedlock Killer shows up and kills this guy. And then he takes over torturing Kate. And now it's a low-grade torture porn because these scenes are real extended and real unpleasant and not enjoyable. And so now it's that, and then it's a race against time because this wedlock killer threatens Kate's son. And so we've got all this interlayers and lacing of things, and then there's the big twist, which is a cheat. So like Kate goes to the radio station to try and get help and to try and save her son, who is currently possessed by the dead woman's ghost, that first victim. So now it's a freaking possession movie. Oh, and we've also been seeing ghosts. The jump scares are so goddamn obnoxious in this. They are the worst kind of jump scare. Because first of all, you know when they're coming because a character is occupying like one side of the frame and there's a big empty gap next to them of like dead space where like, why is the camera not centered on the person? And if you know these kinds of crappy horror movies, you know why, because there's about to be a ghost or a face that shows up there. And then when it does, it has to have a loud scream either from the ghost or musical sting. It's so obnoxious. So that's in the mix too, and that's awful. But anyway, Kate goes to the station, working on trying to save her son. And we have been cutting this whole time back and forth between the broadcast from the station with the DJ there, Lori, and there's the tech Ben, who's also a friend of Kate's, and the psychic Carla, I think. And so we've been cutting back and forth, not particularly smoothly, between Kate, there's one good scene. There's one good scene, and it's when the old guy who owns the house being robbed, who's played by, I believe the actor's name is James Cosmo, who is an old Scottish actor I really like. But when he first shows up, there's this real tension where he's like, because she's sitting in her car, she's supposed to be the lookout, and she's supposed to, if somebody shows up, find a way to get rid of them. And he's just at the car. He's like, something wrong? Do you need help? And he's just unsettling enough. Like, you can't tell. Is he acting that way because he's skeptical of her or because he himself is sketchy? Is she in danger from him? I don't know. That's the one scene of genuine tension, and I give it down to that guy being a really good actor. Oh, by the way, Ben, the tech at the radio, he's played by the actor who played Yanto on Torchwood, Gareth David Lloyd. Am I remembering that name right? I think I am. But yeah, so he's in this, and so anyway, as I said, we've been cutting back and forth between initially Kate just waiting in the car and then going in the house and then finding a body, then being tortured by the old guy, then being tortured by the serial killer. We keep cutting between that stuff and back to the radio station where Lori is just being real rude to this psychic because she doesn't want her there, but then they start picking up a signal. It's like, we're going to actually try and contact the dead. And so it's cutting back and forth, which does the very obvious thing of establishing this is happening at the same time. Well, when Kate gets to the radio station, no, it's not happening at the same time. Because that happened last night, and what's been playing over the radio was a taping of the previous night. This is a cheat. They try, I know exactly what the filmmakers would say. If they heard me say that, it's still a cheat. They would say, well, no, it's not a cheat. We actually bring up a few times the idea of a delay, between when Lori says things and when it goes out over the air. You just thought the delay was shorter than it actually was. That only works if the only elements of the radio station that we were getting was what Kate was hearing over her little janky portable radio. But that actually happened incredibly minimally, and you kept cutting back to it. You established through the standard narrative of film that this stuff was happening at the same time, and that doesn't feel clever. That feels like a cheat. But they had to do that because the wedlock killer is Ben, the tech, the guy from Torchwood. This is a very undermotivated killer. He's just a guy who likes to kill people, evidently. There's a little bit of that stranger danger, don't trust people you meet on the internet aspect to it, because wow, ain't that new and original. Ugh. Here's the thing. I tried for a long time to be forgiving of this because I could tell how limited the resources were. They have like a half dozen actors in this, like maybe 8 at a stretch. Oh, it's pretty much no extras, no background, no crowds. There's like 3 locations, maybe 4. This is very clearly being done with limited resources. And I try and be forgiving for things that are done with limited resources, but I'm going to compare to something else that I know was made with limited resources to just show you the difference. So my friend Jesse Gender, who made Identities, it's on Nebula, check it out. I make a vocal cameo in it, but her production, that short film, also had very limited resources, but the script was written very much to work with very limited resources because that film effectively only had one set that they just kept redressing, and the story was written in a way that made sense and that worked. It was a very tight interlacing of we can't do multiple locations, not for real. We can fake them with the same basic set redressed. That is the best we can do. What can we make with that limitation? Here, it feels like they had a handful of things that didn't really go together, and the convoluted story that's a mashup of multiple horror subgenres feels like an attempt to make use of everything they had access to, even though there isn't a reason for these things to coexist. Like, there isn't an inherent reason for the creepy old house in the woods to have a connection to the remote radio studio. And so in trying to figure out, well, how do I make use of these resources, they came up with this just really, really convoluted, overcooked, at the same time half-baked concept of, well, there's a serial killer and there's a ghost, and the ghost possesses a kid because the ghost is traveling through airwaves, and there's a DJ, and we're going to have a twist for the serial killer reveal, and we're going to torture a woman, and then we're going to torture her again, and then we're going to torture her again in the climax. Like, what? This thing needed to pick a lane, and honestly, probably needed to be a single location story. It probably should have just leaned into the radio broadcast and just really hammered on that and dropped the rest of this. It doesn't help that there are very few likable characters in this. I would say the only one that's close to likable is Kate. And she's the de facto heroine. But she's not very well characterized. Like, she cares about her kid. She needs money. That's kind of all I can tell you about her. I have no idea what her idea of a good time is. I don't mean like, hey, I'll show you a good time. I mean, like, I don't know what her inner life is. We come in like, she wants to help her son and she needs money. Cool. That's a motivation. That's not really a character, though. Are you going to characterize her? No, not really. And as for Lori, who's the DJ, she's just kind of insufferable Ben's fine, but then, twist, he's the killer. So, oh, okay, he's not fine. And as for the psychic, like, it's hard. I've reached a point where it's really difficult for me when movies push the idea of psychics being real. Because, like, psychics, anyone who is being a paid professional psychic in anything other than I'm doing this for fun, let's just have fun with this sense, is a charlatan. And especially if they claim to be a medium who communes with the dead, most of them are flat out ghoulish and predatory, and they prey on pain. So presenting somebody with that as being actually able to do that, I'm not going to say you can't do that, but it doesn't help that Carla in specific is a professional medium. She's written books. She gets paid to do this. I like it. In my mind, if you're going to make use of this, it's got to be someone who isn't trying to capitalize on it, because I don't like the idea of you validating all the people who make money off of claiming to reconnect people with their dead loved ones. Not super comfortable with that. So I don't like her by default. Lori's just not interesting to be around. Kate's boyfriend, Nick, just seems like a dickhead. She's undercharacterized. The woman who's watching her kid is barely a character at all. And her kid is, I think, has the disabilities that he has just so they didn't have to lean on a child actor to actually do much acting. Which, fine. This is just a mess. I think there is the tiny kernel of a couple of ideas that maybe could have been something, but they're sharing space with stuff that's just nothing. And it seems like it's thrown in there because, well, we've got access to this location, so let's figure out something to do with it. Yeah, but none of that benefits the story. Oh, let's do a bunch of torture scenes. Why? You had a little bit of a serial killer and a little bit of a supernatural thing going on. Why are we throwing torture porn into this? This was a mess. And I kept checking the clock. After about an hour, I'm like, are we almost done? And I look at it, it's over half an hour left. I'm like, no! Yeah! Bad movie. I'm sorry, it's a bad movie. Dark Signal. Has anybody seen this thing? And apologies to the person who commissioned me to watch this. If you like this movie, I'm glad I didn't. And I don't think it's well put together, but like, you're allowed to like it. That's fine. And I'm not even mad that you commissioned me to watch it. I just didn't like the movie. It's not good. It's not good. Not to me. Dang it. No. But whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and how I was commissioned to watch this. But even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here. Come on back next time you need a break. I'm going to go to bed.
And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Zubin Mutfullah, Goddess Elida, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Tarak, The Thing That Goes Joink in the Anime, Gene Forey, Movie Turtle, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Trixie Scrabbit, Angry Kasparov, Dave Hall, White Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pal Barabajagal, Mira G, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Oh look, you actually get a face this time and not just butts.